Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Independent Producers Organization Live Showcase. And we have a very special guest today, depending on what you're watching.
There you go.
It's Stacy Cross, Executive Director with Planned Parenthood. And we're going to get right into talking about some of the trying to keep things going at Planned Parenthood. Whatever it takes, we just need to get the word out to everyone so that other people are getting involved and try to get more people involved.
You know, Rich, before, I've been talking to you a little bit on the side. She's been in this business for 14 years. Let's get a little background in terms of who is Stacy
Please
first,
do that.
how she got into this business. And so
Okay, I'm happy to do that. So when I finished my MBA in 2001, there was an opening for CEO at Planned Parenthood of Montana. I replaced the CEO who had been there for 31 years, and I was there for 12 years. And then when this position opened up in May, I will be here 4 years in Portland, covering Planned Parenthood in Columbia, Willamette, and we cover southwestern Washington and Oregon, except for the southwest corner, which is covered by another affiliate.
I can't believe it's been 4 years since I had you on the show.
I can't believe it either.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had her come on right away.
Oh, great.
Since she came into the city. Well, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I've been here, as I said, for 4 years, and really enjoyed it. I love Portland. I love our community.
Family? You have family?
I do have family.
Okay.
I have 5 adult children, 34 to 20, 3 boys, 2 girls, one that's getting ready to graduate from University of Portland with a master's in biomedical environmental on May 7th. Yay.
Awesome.
I have a brewer, somebody that just worked on the Hillary campaign, an environmentalist, and a college student that's getting ready to go to Alaska to be a fly fishing guide for the summer.
Oh, wow.
So,
That'd be good for you and I.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Great. Automatic. Good enough. Good enough. Well,
Keep going.
And in my spare time, I'm a runner, which is really fun. Yeah,
Neat.
I have a group of women that I run with 3 days a week, and just signed up for my 6th marathon to do in October. Yes.
Gee,
So
you're very
got to
active.
get serious about training. Yeah.
That always means 26 miles?
26.2. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
You know, one thing I'd like to just throw out, if you don't mind, is that it's always been sort of a, in terms of defining what is Planned Parenthood. A lot of times it comes off in a very negative way aspect of it. Let's take the time.
Especially if they try to make it.
Yeah,
Right.
but I think it would be a good opportunity just to educate and inform. And hopefully that's what the format we're using anyway, right, Rich?
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And if you could just kind of, in your own word, just define.
I'm happy to do that. So last October, on October 16th, 2016, was our 100th anniversary for Planned Parenthood across the United States. We're a federated organization, so it's Planned Parenthood Federation of America, and then it's made up of affiliates that cover the entire United States. And they're divided based on service area. So there's some that are really big geographically, like I used to cover the entire state of Montana, but there are some affiliates that cover 3 states like Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and then there's some that are smaller, that's an affiliate that just covers Memphis, Tennessee. But the entire United States is divided up into what we call affiliates, which are 56 affiliates. And we serve all basically the same mission, which is we provide healthcare services for women and men. 2.5 million people across the United States come to Planned Parenthood Health Center yearly. We also provide educational services, so we provide comprehensive, age-appropriate sex education all across the country. We go into schools, we talk to parents, we go into any environment we can essentially get in, and we also train teens. So teens come to us and they go through a very comprehensive training program so that they can then be expert in the subject for their teens in their high schools.
Do you have trouble getting into schools?
It depends on the service area. So here, of course, Portland is an incredibly open-minded and liberal area. We just started having an educator in the Bend area because we have 7 health centers here at our affiliate, which is Planned Parenthood Columbia Willamette. And we're just starting to get in that area, and so we're hoping to get more and more in schools because Planned Parenthood nationally and locally, we do more. What we do is preventative care. 95% of what we provide is preventative health care. So we actually do more than any other organization in the United States to prevent unplanned pregnancy. So we keep patients safe by doing life-saving cancer screenings. We provide STD, sexually transmitted infection, testing and treatment. Here in Oregon, we actually see about 12% men for different treatments. But one of the things that I'm very proud of at our affiliate is we do more vasectomies at our health centers than any other organization in the whole state of Oregon. And we do them in a very affordable way. Men, yeah, vasectomies. We can only do those on men.
That's
So,
right.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Men.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah, that's
Do
good.
women have the same thing? What do they?
Well,
They do. They do sterilization.
Yeah.
We do not do that at
the
our
vasectomy.
affiliate currently, but we have started a couple of new programs since I was here 4 years ago.
Okay.
So we provide basic reproductive health care, but we also now provide the first prenatal care visit. So we have women that come in and to find out if they're pregnant, and if they choose to continue their pregnancy, we used to hand them a list of where they could go to get their care. Now we do get them all set up and do all the tests that they need for their first prenatal care visit. And we do what we call more of a warm handoff. So we actually find out where they live, we talk to them about their travel or transportation situation, and we try to find a place that's easy and convenient for them to go. A lot of our patients are low income, but even if it's free, if you can't get to those visits because you don't have the transportation, that's
right.
incredibly problematic. So I'm really proud that we started that. We also have started hormone therapy for our trans patients, which has been a really great service that we started about a year ago.
Some of the presidents of the United States have gotten involved with Planned Parenthood,
Yes,
right?
they have, absolutely.
And how could anybody be against this? I mean, the president now, how could they be against it when they say Eisenhower and I know Nixon was very aware.
Nixon, yeah, actually, Nixon is a great example to use as a Republican president because he actually started the largest, longest running reproductive health program in the entire United States called Title X, which gives low-income women an opportunity to come in and get their sexually transmitted infections tested and treated, that they can get their life-saving cancer screenings, and they can also get on birth control, which is one of the most important things, obviously, in preventing pregnancy, but they can do this on a sliding fee scale. So you can actually slide to zero based on your income. And this was started by a Republican president because he understood the connection between having your reproductive choices and the health of the family. And the economic situation for the family.
You know, something that's always come into my mind for years, you know, when you think about the history of sex. I mean, just the history of sex. I mean, just in terms of from almost way back when, from a prehistoric standpoint, of how women were treated, so to speak. And
Absolutely.
then doing that, will you kind of take us through that whole issue? How sex changed? You know, how it might change from in terms of permissiveness, in terms of just the whole issue of sex.
Well, one of the that's a huge topic. We don't have an entire time for that, but I'll talk about what's happened with Planned Parenthood and our outlook on sexuality since I became a CEO 16 years ago. So when women first started going into the workforce, which was really when I first entered the workforce in the early 80s, there were still limitations on what you could do and not do. The pill's been around for about 50 years, and when you think about the pill as a medication, that was really one of the most significant medications that revolutionized our entire world, because women for the first time in their lives have had the ability to really control their fertility. As an example, both of my grandmothers died due to lack of access to birth control. My father's mom, who I never met, she died when my dad was about 18 months old, in the 30s, married, one child. It was during the Depression, and she had an illegal abortion and died as a result of it. My mom's mom died when she was 47, never came home from the hospital after delivering her 9th child. So just think about the difference that world would be. And there's so many stories. There's mothers, there's sisters, there's daughters, that their lives were radically changed because they didn't have access to really effective birth control. So that's one of the biggest things in our world, is that women now can control their fertility. That is huge, and you can make a choice about it. When you mentioned the current president, which we could talk about for a very long period of time, but the election, was really, I think a lot of people expected a different outcome, but the day after the election, we normally get about 400 calls into our call center. We received over 800 calls, that double what we normally get, because women are terrified that they won't have the Affordable Care Act, which allowed women to have access to birth control with no copay. For the first time, 55 million women have access to birth control with no copay. And they're also afraid that birth control access will just be taken away. So we have had so many women come in across the nation. There's been a 900% increase of women coming in and getting what we call LARCs, or long-acting reversible contraceptives, which are IUDs or an implant that gives you birth control for an extended period of time, but can be removed when you're ready to, if and when you want to have a child. And depending on the method, they last from 3 to 10 years. So an incredibly effective form of birth control, because it takes the human hair out of taking a pill or putting a ring in. So it's really amazingly effective. But people are terrified about reproductive choice, the environment, many things, because of this new president. The vice president actually was the first person, when he was in the Senate, it was called the Pence Amendment, to put forward something to essentially defund Planned Parenthood. Vice President Pence is really always been on a war path for women, but also for Planned Parenthood. And there's some confusion about what that means. I think people have the misconception that we receive just kind of a bucket of funding from the federal government, but we get reimbursed like every other healthcare provider for the services that we provide. So defunding Planned Parenthood means, and I've gone through it probably 8 or 9 times, maybe more since I've been a CEO, it means that we will not be reimbursed for, they're starting off with specifically the Medicaid services that we provide, which specifically Medicaid is about 48% of the services we provide to low-income women. So it would have a huge impact for us. But what they would be taking away from low-income women if they defund Planned Parenthood across the country is the ability for them to reach out and get contraception, birth control, to get life-saving cancer screenings, and to also be safe with testing and treatment for sexually transmitted infections. The one thing it doesn't impact is our ability to provide abortion services, because abortion, since 1976, you cannot use federal dollars to provide abortion services when the Hyde Amendment went into effect. So it would actually prevent us from providing what most people have a common ground agreement on, which is birth control and keeping people safe.
But a lot of times, but even to this day though, but a lot of times in many circles, they tend to still identify Planned Parenthood
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Can you talk to that a little bit?
I do. I talk about it a lot. All our materials talk about it. And, the other side is very loud. I remember one of the defundings, it was a senator from Arizona, talked about the fact that what Planned Parenthood did, that 95% of our services were abortion services. And that is just that's a false statement.
Oh, yeah.
And he knew it was a false statement. It's a lie. Across the country, we provide anywhere from 3 to 6% of the services provided by Planned Parenthood affiliates is abortion services. Our goal is to prevent unplanned pregnancy to keep women safe and to keep families healthy.
So it's not a universal abort kind of a...
Absolutely not.
Because I think that misconception has been out there for a number of years.
Absolutely. And we do more preventative services than any other organization in the country regarding reproductive health care.
Another area that I think that's here today with us is that how does one keep intact, if you will, the family image that we've had from a historical standpoint? Mother, father, kids type thing, because because we're in a day and age now is that people, as you say, they tend to plan the family.
Right.
And then sometimes people plan the family from the standpoint of not having the male component with it or vice versa. You got me? And so we're kind of like in that mix, if you will.
We're in a world of great diversity.
Yes,
and
very much so.
a world of change. And isn't that wonderful?
Yeah,
because now people, depending on who they love, they can make whatever choices they want as long as they are making those choices together.
But at the same time, like I said, there's still this, from an older generation, there's still this family quality as opposed to a commercial kind of a situation.
Right.
Not making the body, a female's body just a commercial. Or, I want to have a baby, okay, fine. But I can go on and leave it this way. I can take a pill or something like that. So we're going into that, but I think it's more of an education thing because just like you said, for the poor, in many cases, they weren't really educated about the pill. A lot of times they couldn't even afford it.
Absolutely, and that's one of the big problems. One of the many problems with defunding is who it's really going to impact is the people that can't afford it, and so the people that have the greatest impact on so many things that we're seeing right now are the people that don't have a voice and are not comfortable speaking out. I think when we think of this political environment that we're in right now. The way I view where we're at is that we've had kind of a festering wound with all these things underneath it, with sexism, racism, kind of the hatred of poor people, against different people's religion. And now that's, the scab's been ripped off. And now we have 4 years to really do what we can to heal that and to make a difference. And for everybody to speak out, everybody needs to stand up. We can't tolerate hate. We can't tolerate ignorance. We really need to stand up for each other. And I think it's an opportunity for us to put our differences aside and to really focus on who we are as loving, kind human beings.
To continue the funding.
Yes.
And to do the thing, overcome the problems that have prevented it, or try the people that are trying to prevent funding. Is that essentially what you're meaning? It's, right now, what is the biggest thing we can do or people can do right now? Because it's like this defunding is lurking up there. It's just kind of there. And,
so that in order to get defunding through, it has to pass, both the House and the Senate before it goes to the president's desk for him to sign it. And so they have to attach it to a bill that they can be successful getting through. So the first bill that they were looking at, passing it through, is during what they call reconciliation time, and they can pass a bill through during those periods with only 51 senator votes. And so the first bill that they thought they would attach the defunding bill to was the Affordable Care Act, how they were going to repeal it and put something else in place. And for 7 years, they've been talking about the fact that, they have a better bill, and then it got to the end of the game and they didn't have a better bill. They, 17 only 17% of America supported that version of the bill that they put forward. So they actually can't put another bill out there with defunding on it until probably in the fall. So we're probably safe for a while.
The Republicans.
The Republicans. In order for it to go through in the summer, it's during appropriation time, they have to get 60 senator votes, and they do not have that in the U.S.
that's
Senate right now.
That's right.
But it's not going to go away. We're going to have this
No.
fear until this administration is not in the White House.
What can people do?
Well, what people can do is they can, speak out. They can call their representatives and their senators. Fortunately, we are really blessed to live in a state where we have a lot of federal support, stellar federal support. Our U.S. senators are incredible, strong, and fighting for us. Senator Merkley was just amazing in what he just did on the floor of the Senate, opposing this Supreme Court justice,
filibuster?
the filibuster.
Oh, okay.
He was fantastic. He is a strong supporter of Planned Parenthood, along with Senator Wyden. All of our representatives in Oregon are strongly supportive of family planning. Representative Greg Walden is not as supportive of the full range of the services that we provide. So he would be the outlier in the state of Oregon.
But
Got to have somebody.
But from a layman standpoint, as a layman standpoint, if I'm not that familiar, and I'm just coming from a mom and dad and family and brothers and sisters and this, that, and the other, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of saying, well, okay, fine, I'm part of that reproductive kind of an arena.
Right.
And so now, however, we've come in an age where we have all sorts of issues on the table, especially the female. Excuse the French, the upper echelon of the females is a little different than the lower echelon.
Absolutely.
That's a small minority aspect of it. And the idea is that they're conscious about having family. But in all due respect, they tend to respect it from the standpoint of the era that we're in, so to speak. The lower, on the other end of it, aspect of it, there are many diseases and all kinds of things that are coming as a result of whatever the environment that we're living in, and they need help. See, and so the key is that, but then and this is just I'm just as a layperson.
Yeah.
But then when they put the definition of Planned Parenthood in their aspect of it, the service to women from a health standpoint is overlooked. It's just the aborted side that gets thrown on the table. You hear what I'm saying?
Except that our patients know what we do.
I know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But see, the patients know if they get in to listen to what you have to say. That's the key. And see, and in many cases, we used to do that in the first we just did it from word of mouth way back when the poor folks we just in fact my mom and my dad would basically wouldn't take me in and say, okay son, let me tell you what you have to do if this doesn't, and then I just have to work on what's happening on the street depending upon where I'm living and this, that, and the other. I'm just kind of like going around and about the deal, but the whole idea is that we've gone through sort of an evolution aspect of it, and so here we are today. We need more services today than we ever did, because now it's reaching down to everybody across the board. And so that's why I make the point that we need to educate more, and rather than disagree, let's come up with agree to disagree, and sit at the table and talk about services and the impact and the rationale as to why we have an education system. We do have a sort of an area where we have them in a controlled kind of environment, but who defines what that education is supposed to look like? That's the other side of the coin.
Absolutely. So as far as sex education, we happen to live in a state where it's pretty available. Each school district gets to have some impact on that in their curriculum, but we're in a school, in an environment in Oregon that believes in comprehensive sex education, not just abstinence-only education, which essentially does not give them all the information. Comprehensive sex education talks about abstinence, but also talks about so much more, about how to protect yourself from sexually transmitted infections, about appropriate body image, about how to protect yourself from being in an unsafe environment, how to say no for both the young man and the young woman so that they fully understand, and how to be safe, which is really important, and how to protect yourself from an unplanned pregnancy. So the base of our patients are 18 to 29. And so everyone really has, most people have access to the internet in one way or the other, through their cell phone, through going to the library.
Right.
And so information is readily available there. That does not mean that teens still don't believe in amazing myths by word of mouth. But one of the great things about our teen councils is that we have teens that come in and they really go through a comprehensive program to find out about how to protect yourself, what's age appropriate, and to dispel some of the myths that teens, amazingly, even with all the access to this information at their fingertips, still believe. As an example, that if one condom's good, two condoms might be better, which is absolutely false, because if you have two condoms, they break. And so that does not make you safe. So there's all kinds of access to information. And one of the things when you were talking about, it's going to be the poor or the person that doesn't have a voice that are going to suffer. Absolutely. And I'll give you a great real life example that has unfolded in the United States. So we don't have to go to another country or anywhere else to see how this happens. So when Texas, when they decided to defund all reproductive health care in Texas in 2010, they went, Texas there was an article in November this year, November of 2016, in the New England Journal of Medicine that really did a research on the impact of a state in America, in 2016, that you could see the impact of the loss of reproductive health care services. Because the governor at that time tried to take reproductive health services, being the funds away, state and federal funds away from just Planned Parenthood. And because he could not pass it, he took it away from every provider in the state. And they went from 40 providers to 3.
How was he able to do that?
He passed it through he passed it through the legislature, their state legislature. And he took those he didn't take federal dollars away, but he took state dollars away.
Okay.
And so there was a 27% increase in unplanned pregnancy. There was a doubling of maternal death, because if you don't have access to your reproductive health clinic to get birth control, you also don't have access to get prenatal care. So there was a huge impact on that state. And so now they're actually having, Planned Parenthoods are having communities come and say, we really need you back. Because if you have women's health deteriorate, that impacts the entire community, the health of the whole state. And so it has the highest teenage pregnancy and unplanned pregnancy rate in the entire country right now as a result of doing that. So that impacts mostly poor and low-income families, because if you have money, you have insurance, you can go to your provider and get that. But that's always true of services.
Another major factor that's in this whole arena is the religious factor aspect of it. And all the biggest entity that I see, I'm a Catholic myself. I'm not a practicing Catholic, but I was born and raised that way, and altar boy, the whole 9-yard aspect of it. But the bottom line, that's another major issue.
Yes.
And whether or not they've come to the table yet to communicate, that's another area. Because I think in many ways there's still a lot of folks that really are strong, family-oriented kind of a deal. You know what I'm saying? And even at my age and our age, whatever, I didn't know anything about sex or anything of that nature. I know there was birds and bees, like we always do as you're young. I mean, because somebody up there said, "Oh, it's clicked." And whatever, and you're not into reading a book, you will just have sex. But the health issue is something that isn't on the table before they get to that birds and bees. Even though they're 18 and whatever, it should even be before that to a certain degree, especially today, because you got the visual aids and this, that, and the other. You can see all kinds of this, that, and the other. Young people
on your phone,
on your phone, and this, that, and the other. And you think about it, moms and dads, they're out there working every day, and and the kids are left at home and whatever. They can turn on the tube, they can see this, that, and the other,
Right.
and that's big.
Absolutely.
See, and so what can we do? You can't stop the birds and the bees,
Right.
but if you can get the healthcare piece in there, you know, like
And the education
and the
piece,
education, that's
which
the key.
is hugely
Education
important.
on the healthcare piece.
Yes.
Where do you start? When you make the point about the 18 to 21, but in all due respect, that birds and bees hit way back when because of those visual aids.
Oh,
Does
absolutely.
that make sense? You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That is not on the table.
And but that's why it's important to get into schools. It's important for parents to be talking to their young adolescents about what, healthy touching.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
it has to start very young, so
the
that you
powers
really
that-
understand
But
it.
the powers to be, if you will, our leadership, needs to be at the table and understand it.
Yes.
But in most cases, their priorities are different because it's like anything else. We're all creatures of our exposure, right?
Right.
And if you didn't go through that during the early years,
Right.
then guess what? I'm going to be here. I've got other motives now. I got to run for office,
Right.
and I'm looking for numbers, and it's not my problem. It's not my back door. It's somebody else's problem, and then I will weigh accordingly. So I'm just kind of see. And the reason why I'm really into this because I'm a talk show host here too as president, and you have friends of all them. And Bill Deere was a friend of mine. He's very Catholic. He's a very neat guy, very family kind of a guy, but that's what I saw lacking from his standpoint. I remember he was making the point. I don't know if you've seen the shows or whatever, but making the point about Planned Parenthood had gone to his class or whatever. But what I saw after I got through getting through this piece, because I was trying to get someone to communicate, but I couldn't get to the door. But the bottom line is that that's what I saw lacking. They didn't bring it into the education system, not the Planned Parenthood. The powers to be should have understood what the deal is, and they should have put together a format to make sure it got to the birds and bees area, not 18, if you kind of hear where I'm coming
Oh
from.
no, it's completely appropriate in middle school and in high school to be talking about this. Parents are the first. That needs to happen with the parents as soon as possible.
Yes, but you
That
should have
they-
but the system, not you, but you basically laid it out. Planned Parenthood. This is the definition of Planned Parenthood. This is what
Yes.
we do. We offer services and whatever, and this is why.
Yes.
Then I'm saying they should take that piece
Well, we couldn't
and put
agree
it
with
all
you
the way
more.
to the front end. And in fact, in all due respect, even when they get this teacher certificate, that should be in the college. When these teachers get out, blah 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 routine, that should be a part of the curriculum.
Because it's a part of who we are as humans.
It's our human.
Yes,
Yeah, it's very much. So it's a tough, but it needs to be talked to. That's why I appreciate the fact that you're on the show tonight.
And we get into high schools and we do parent, mother, daughter, father, son, or whatever relationship, so that both parts can come in and get educated at our health centers, talking to our educators. It's an important part of the process so that people understand as soon as possible what's happening. We all remember that first program when we were in 4th or 5th grade when they talked about what's happening in girls' bodies and what's happening in boys' bodies. But then when I was in school, it stopped there. Now we're providing much more information so that they can be safe and protect themselves. And it's really important that both young men and young women understand about when it's appropriate, what no means, and how to protect yourself.
Because a woman is a woman is a woman. She's going
Absolutely.
to always protect her child, right? Is that fair?
Yeah.
And then I've talked to several women that have said to me, just in a personal way, said, "Well, Bruce, I didn't realize what I was doing. I was scared, and I just could not tell my parents what I did.
Right.
And so I've aborted my child, and now here I'm at an age I can't have one." But then a lot of times what they'll do, they'll blame someone else for what they did, you know what I'm saying, or try to understand. So had that education piece been on the front end, and if in fact they had health issues, and they had to do that, then if they got to a point in life, they could have adopted or this, that, and the other, but we don't have that mindset. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's
that
more. I think it's more available now than ever before. I think this current administration is trying to pull that back by taking away services, or for us, the ability to get reimbursed. But when you were talking about religious part of
Yeah,
this,
that's right. Yes.
I think that's a really interesting part of it, because we have what we call clergy for choice all across the United States. Actually, 98% of Catholics actually use birth control that are sexually active. So most people can, that's a common ground place where they can agree that they want to prevent unplanned pregnancies and keep people safe. But most religions really have an understanding of sexuality in a way that's protective and safe for partners and for people and for their families.
We're talking about ancient religions.
Right.
And that is the correct word because it goes way back to where there weren't many people, and the ancient religion said, well, we need a whole lot of people to pay us to keep going.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, whether
Right.
it's
That's
Catholic,
another arena.
Islam, Chinese, India, whatever, they're out there saying, have as many kids as you can.
But the birds and
And
the
they
bees
don't
always have it.
understand
That's
that
always the
won't
one
work.
that stands out. The birds and the
Exactly.
bees, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, then everything else comes around the birds and the bees, and depending upon what your involvement is or your rationale for doing what you're doing, you'll identify your definition of the birds and the bees and set it over here and say this is what I'm into.
Right.
Is that fair? Is that fair?
Yeah,
I'm
sure,
kind of a late
yeah.
kind of a guy.
Yeah.
I always go back to birds and the bees because I'm not a female. I could
Well,
be a male, but
but,
still,
you know, in
I'm
a
I'm very
heterosexual-
family-oriented type
Right.
of deal. I want to make sure I got a legacy.
Right.
I want to make sure my kids are there, blah, 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 someone that I can put my name on. And that we grew up that way, so to speak. But the health care of a male and a female, I didn't realize, for instance, you just threw something out there about vasectomy. I didn't realize that you guys did
Yes.
that piece.
Yep. We're really
It's easier.
yeah, it's a simple procedure for men, and it's not as invasive as when
Right,
a woman
right.
goes through a
Women
permanent.
has to go in
Right.
through the stomach.
Well,
Probably.
there's a variety of
All
different
kinds
ways to do that.
Okay.
You start
Yeah.
getting into, but it's the other. Well, I don't know. I'm not a doctor per se, but
Yeah.
it's a tie up or something like that. But
Yeah, it's
my
a
point-
simple
Simple deal.
procedure and non-invasive versus what a woman has to go through, and the recovery period is much easier also.
Now, can you do that at a later date, if you will? Can they, as one would say, could they it's sort of
Yes, they can. It's not as easy to be reversible,
Right.
but many men have had their vasectomies reversed.
reversed.
So,
Okay, and so they can just go back again.
Yeah.
But a
But
woman
not-
can't,
not 100%,
Yeah,
yeah.
but women can't do that.
No, it depends on what kind of method they use. So, you know, one of the things that I talked about earlier in the show is LARC, long-acting reversible contraceptives, and that's an implant or an IUD, and they last for several years, and it's a really effective
Oh, really?
method until you're ready to permanently make that final decision about not having any more children.
Oh, really? Wow, that's a pretty.
I think
have
that's
you,
good.
Have you
Yeah.
kept the stats on that from the standpoint of you know, if a woman goes through that situation, the number of women that opt to do that and change and.
Well, right now, since the election, we've had a 900% increase across the United States of women making that choice.
Was that right?
Yes, and I'll give you a study about IUDs. So in Colorado, they did on LARCs, they did a study. They had a very large donor come into the state of Colorado and fund this for 5 years and give essentially free IUDs for the state of Colorado, and they saw a dramatic decrease in unplanned pregnancy, and then a hit on all the systems that would have taken care of an unplanned pregnancy, particularly for low-income women. So there was a drop in all those different areas, and it was significant. And it used to be that we did not use IUDs with teenagers, and then we now, because of a variety of things that have changed, we have found them to be an incredibly safe and effective method for teens. It really takes the human air out of it. And I am not a physician, so don't ask me any medical questions.
Yeah.
What's the possibility of getting some of this all over the world? Other China and
Well,
Africa,
What you mean?
India.
What we're talking about right now?
Spreading.
We're doing it now. Remember, we got YouTube.
Well, in order
No, we're talking about getting stuff.
Getting the word?
to ladies in the other countries?
Well, one thing that we really believe in at
And
Planned Parenthood is that it has to be the woman's choice always, whether
right.
they use a birth control method
Right.
or if they don't. So it's their body and their choice
Right.
alone. So you can't really force somebody to use a method that they don't choose to use. So this method is available all across the world. There are different funders that help provide different services across the world, and services are getting more and more available that for longer periods of times, like LARC, that is effective for like 3 to 10 years, incredibly effective to prevent unplanned pregnancy.
Oh, good.
Well, you know, again,
Wonderful.
And just like you're saying, you see, but on the upper echelon, they understand.
Right.
But the people down, they're not low income. It's just that the unavailability. Let's put it that. Something I'm using another term
Yeah.
because a lot of times what happens is that there's another communication piece that says the annihilation of poor folks. Because, like I said, now we've talked a little bit about that when you Google the terms of Planned Parenthood, there was a segment that basically said was a focus on blacks and minority aspect of it. You see what I'm saying? And then,
Yeah.
and then there was folks that said, well, gee whiz, wait a minute, they're trying to annihilate my race aspect of it. But we were on the low end.
That was certainly part of Planned Parenthood's history, but it was a different time, and we certainly have different thoughts. And I think if our founder was here today, she would have a different belief in
a whole
that.
new day now.
It's a whole new day with a whole just a fantastic world of diversity with different choices and different opportunities for people. And now birth control is available for low-income people. It's available through what I said about Title X, which is a fantastic program that's offered all across the United States. We actually have a bill in the legislature right now. It's House Bill 33. You have a paper on it right here.
Can you get that?
It's House Bill 3391. It's a reproductive health equity bill, and it's a fantastic bill that will do a variety of things if we can get it across the line, which I'm really hopeful we can, to put access to reproductive health care available for all women in Oregon without a copay for all the services that we provide.
How young are you going on?
That's what she said. She's about 18.
She mentioned about 18.
Yeah, I mean,
It's gotta
No,
go below
we
that.
provide services for lower than that when a patient comes in.
Yeah.
but when you get in, but that's not the standard, right?
That's not the standard.
Yes, that's where I'm coming from.
No,
So-
that the vast majority of our
Yeah.
patients in that, but we
Yeah.
have patients that come in
Yes.
that are much younger.
But that's when that
Absolutely.
but the burden of beast starts then, way
Yeah,
back when.
and
see.
they come into our health centers.
So-
we strongly encourage people to come in with their parents
Right.
and get birth
Yeah.
control and talk about and have that open conversation.
Well, I got a challenge for you.
Yes.
What about a bill that says we take out all of this, the heavy sex off of TV and Facebook and. Can you come up with a bill?
No,
Can you come up with a
that is
bill?
not
Can you
my
do that one?
area.
Can you
That
do
is
that one?
not
You
my
can't
area.
stop that.
Yeah.
But see, but what that does, that sort of like it introduces the birds and the bees at an earlier stage. That's where I'm coming from.
It's
Am I
definitely
doing- am
that
I-
exposure is there,
That
and it's
exposure's there.
exposure on the internet, and
Yes.
that's why it's so important for us to be open as families and to talk about sexuality. It's a part of our human existence, and how to be safe, how to protect yourself, how to make choices, and how to have access to birth control when you're ready to become sexually active.
And you know, that was not available in the old days. In the old days,
Just
a
about
person would go
anything
to
wasn't
maybe some
available.
doc and somebody in the corner or something like that, and then get the aborted situation aspect of it. Whereas a person, in all due respect, on the upper class, they knew. The other had access to a doctor or something else. But and when the pills came out, but now all of a sudden, it's affecting everybody. It's not just low income.
Right.
It's
Oh,
everybody.
absolutely.
It's everybody. And so the idea is that now we're going through this educational period, but we need to educate those folks that are sitting on the other end and take the politics out of it.
Right.
And that's
It
going to be
should-
the hard. That's going to be a tough nut.
Reproductive health care should not be a political issue.
Yes, that's right.
Absolutely.
You got a lot of
That's
work to do.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's a hard
a lot of
job,
work to do.
and I
Why
love
do-
it.
And
Why do
men,
the
and
Republicans
to the
want it?
men, I got to make sure that you understand about the vasectomy. I mean, I didn't realize you guys had that service aspect of
Absolutely.
it. You know what I'm saying? And you know, because people are just sitting down there, birds and bees. You know, kind of a routine. And in all due respect, it's on the tubes and whatever. And if you're gonna have to go that way, and if we got to live that way, in all due respect, I'm gonna be making sure that I let my kids know.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Especially the males.
Right.
Now this, how is this bill doing? This is the only bill down there in the
This is our big bill. It's part of a reproductive rights coalition, and you can see it's NARAL as part of our coalition, ACLU, APANO, Western States, Family Forward, the Latino Health Network, and it's really a bill that we have all worked together on to protect women in the state of Oregon, or people that identify as women or have reproductive female reproductive organs still.
Are you trying to get it through regardless of how the Obamacare goes?
Yes, because it does things that will have a big impact in
Okay.
the state. It will keep abortion safe and legal
Okay,
in
good.
Oregon. It will protect women and give them access even if they're undocumented. It will be able to provide reproductive health care for a woman regardless of their, what their sex is on their driver's license. If they can get pregnant and they need a Pap test, they'll be able to get that coverage, which is incredibly important. And they'll be able to continue to have access to birth control at a no cost, which is great.
And another big issue is that is Planned Parenthood a pro-family state? You don't preach anti-family.
Oh,
Okay, that's the other thing I
absolutely
was going to throw
not.
out. See, no, but you understand what I'm saying.
Right.
That's on the table. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because the
Well, what it-
perception again
Yeah.
is that it's breaking. You know what I'm saying? It's still pro-family, right?
Absolutely. Well, as I first mentioned, I'm a mom of 5.
Yes,
so
that's why I asked you.
so I think we think of it as pro-family, pro-choice, and what we want to do is for people to be able to make those choices when they're ready to make those choices and decisions. So they're informed and have them to be able to start a family when they're ready, not when they have to.
But like I said, I keep going back to the birds and the bees. Birds and the bees come in. You never know when it's going to come in.
Absolutely. But that's why we want to have families having
That's
that
right. Yeah,
conversation
yeah.
so that they're proactive and they're talking about not only using birth control, but also using condoms, because right now we have we've had a surge in things that we haven't seen for a long time. Syphilis and gonorrhea, we're seeing a surge in that right now because now that people are using really effective birth control, they're not backing that up with condoms, which is incredibly
yeah.
important.
Well, like I said, way back when, think about my age factor. I grew up in a southern town up in Houston, Texas, and city and whatever, and there was no such thing as condoms around. I was going with just the birds and the bees.
Right.
And a lot of my classmates, they got pregnant early
Wait,
in those days.
I bet there were condoms, and what you did.
No, couldn't
Wait
afford
a minute.
them. We weren't educated. I mean, my point is that they weren't in the classroom. I mean,
Right.
you wouldn't talk about it. Even mom and dad wouldn't talk about it.
And you went into the store and say, have you got to the pharmacist? Have you got some condoms? And the pharmacist say, hey Joe, do we have any condoms anywhere?
Well, see, like I said,
people-
especially
it's
men.
just a big joke.
Especially men.
Yeah.
When the birds and the bees hits, you could care less about a condom. I mean, I hate to put it that way.
Well,
I hate to
that's
be
why
so
there
bold.
has to be
That's
as much
That's why that
access.
education. That's why you got to really get into that education piece aspect of it, especially today. Like I said, I didn't have TV. We didn't have TV. I mean, you wouldn't see it as sex. You wouldn't see no such thing as sex. I mean, people were wearing those big dresses and all this, that, and the other, and petty. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just thinking from a lay standpoint. We have an education problem here right now.
Okay.
And you just can't blame this one entity or even the other entity.
Right.
We got to make sure we get that education with the leaders.
What we want to do is have access. The way you can really decrease unplanned pregnancies, a couple of ways. One is by providing comprehensive sex education so
Right.
that people understand their bodies.
That's key.
age appropriate at the earliest age, so that it changes as you grow, what you're talking about with your teen and young adolescent. And then they need to have easy access, so they need to be able to go in and get birth control and get condoms easily, and it needs to be affordable. It's really kind of simple math when you think about it.
Yep.
So it's important that there are easy access to condoms particularly, and that there's access to birth control so that women can access it. The study that I mentioned earlier from the New England Journal of Medicine from November, I mean, once access was taken away, they saw a rapid and just huge increase in unplanned pregnancy and making it unsafe for really all of women's overall health. Having access and having it be affordable was really made the difference.
And men.
And men.
Always use men too with it now.
Oh, absolutely.
It's women and men.
Women and men.
Okay.
And one of the great things about the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, and actually that's a interesting thing. I was just in Washington, D.C. for a week, not last week, the week before, an entire week. Part of it was our national conference, and part of it was an opportunity to go and lobby on the Hill. And we cover part of Washington, so I was at all of our senators and representatives' offices. And one of the themes that we heard over and over and over again was that people loved the Affordable Care Act, but they didn't like Obamacare. And what they didn't realize is they're actually one in the same.
Oh, yeah.
One in the same. And one of the things that's in the Affordable Care Act that actually came from Montana, where I was before, because our senator at the time, Senator Max Baucus, helped write the Affordable Care Act, was gender equity. So a woman, because we actually have babies and have all the complications and wonderful things from having that, it used to be that we had to pay more for our health care because of that. In the Affordable Care Act, that's not true. There's gender equity, and we all pay the same and equally, which is really wonderful. And having access to birth control with no copay and all of reproductive health care really made a difference. One of the things that you saw during this last when they were talking about the Affordable Care Act, the one that just had the non-vote, was a scene of members of the House, a picture of members of the House sitting in a room, mostly older white men, not a woman in sight, talking about reproductive health care and women having access to maternity care and birth control. That's one of the problems that we're having right now, is we don't have enough women at the table as part of the discussion.
You know, I'm going to throw something else out to you.
Yes.
And we're all grown-ups here. And,
Yes.
and we're at an age now that's what we are,
Yeah.
Rich and I. But you know, when one says, and think about it from a political standpoint and from our history, we've got, when they came up with Affordable Care Act and Obamacare, Obama is black. And you know, my point is that we still have that civil war going on between.
There is no doubt about
and so
that.
the whole idea
That
is
is crystal clear right now.
You know, with Obamacare, there's a group of folks out there that are saying, well, gee whiz, what you gonna do? We're gonna have all these black babies running around. I mean, it's really sad. It's people don't talk about it, but that's the other side. When you say Affordable Care Act, and I think that would help out quite a bit, that we just Affordable Care Act and make sure it's all inclusive. Because the moment you put Obama on it, here we go with the black situation, the black and white, and we put that in the mix, and it reinforces the other crowd to use that as a way of saying, boom, that's behind closed doors. And I mean, I'm just being upfront about that.
Oh no,
That's real.
actually the
That's
other
real world.
side named the Affordable Care Act Obamacare. They
Yes.
started using it,
Yes.
and then Obama took it up because
Yes.
he decided it was okay. And now we have a new president, so the Affordable Care Act is what I'm choosing to call it, and they're trying to make it better. And as you know, and you've probably seen that President Obama was, if you can make this as comprehensive as it is, covering as many people as we're now covering with access to health care, and make it more affordable, he was going to be ready to stand in line to support it, but not taking more people out. You know, when we expanded Medicaid here in Oregon, that provided access for 400,000 more people to have access to health care that didn't have access before.
Yeah.
And we can't go back from that. But there's no doubt about it. There
Obama,
is a
yeah.
racial
If he had have
factor in
said,
this.
if he had have said no, we're going to keep it Affordable Care Act, it would have been a far better sell in many ways, in a lot of because we definitely need the health care.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of folks are adopting outside and this, that, and the other. My point is that, you know, we want to just go on and maintain our diversity aspect of it. But every time I look at the the Civil War, the Lincoln era aspect of it, we're still in the Civil War to a certain degree, a certain mindset. We're coming out of it, but it's going to take us some time. But they need to get away from the Obamacare Act as opposed to Affordable Care Act. And
Yeah, I
politically
think that-
speaking, the other side of it, look, no, we're going to keep it Obama because we keep the race thing in there. Guess what? I'm going to get my votes. I hate to put it that way.
I think that absolutely that's true, and I think the racial issues
Yeah, it's
and the sexuality issues and the sexist issues and the hatred of poor people and people
Yeah,
of different
yeah.
religions. If we thought that wasn't happening in America, now that, as I said before, that scab's ripped off.
Yep, let's
but
talk about
right now, we have an opportunity.
Yep.
I'm going to view this, instead of being discouraged,
Yep,
I'm
yep.
going to view this as
positive.
hopeful
Yep.
and an opportunity to really talk about
Yep,
these things
yep.
openly and find a way to find solutions and to heal and to improve and be a better America.
Well, I'm
with
appreciating.
that.
I mean, big time. I mean, in all due
Yeah.
respect, I've been talking about this issue, but I was never able to get someone that I could talk to. I mean, at least communicate. You get me? And you've done a good job.
Thank you.
Now, which, speaking of that, I want to kind of go over things so that
Go on. Yeah, you got about 4 minutes. Go on, Rich.
Yeah. 2 or
3 minutes,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Your job, your day.
So we're have we covered the thing about get involved to do with trying to stop? By the way, did you think it was Trump or Pence that is the biggest driving force behind?
About defunding Planned Parenthood,
Yeah.
definitely Vice President Pence. He, as I said, he did that when he was in the Senate. It's the first defunding bill of Planned Parenthood. It was called the Pence Amendment. And when he went to be a governor of Indiana, he, really attacked and tried to defund Planned Parenthood. And it's not just about Planned Parenthood. He's really has a strong opposition of gay and lesbian issues. He had a devastating impact on healthcare, HIV treatment, and just devastating.
He said it
impact
didn't
there.
exist, probably, huh?
It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain thinking that you can't understand.
But we're all creatures of our exposures.
Yes.
And as you know, when we get in politics, it's not necessarily your way. It's basically your supporters' way.
Right.
It's something,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
But I do
we
think
get there.
there's-
Things are changing a bit.
Yeah, I do
know,
think that
things are
there is a
changing.
lot of fear, and when you have fear right now, there has to be an other or the them to focus that fear on, and we can be successful if we
We do
unite
more of this
together.
We've got to do
Yes.
more of this. As you, in fact, like I said, I happen to know my friend Bill Diaz and whatever, and I'm gonna here's my card, and I'm gonna have you on my show.
Okay,
We'll
thank
talk,
you.
And maybe there's a possibility we might be able to get the two. You know what I mean? Just to talk about this, just common sense.
There
Opinion,
should
and
be
we
some
gotta talk.
areas that we agree on, some common ground issues.
Well, I'm in a position to get him at the table.
Okay.
I'll talk to him and
Okay.
vice versa, and we'll just talk. But I'd like
Okay.
to have you on my show just as an individual so we can spend another hour for yourself, like we
Okay.
talked about before.
Well-
and then we'll do that. But I appreciate that.
I'll leave trying to get birth control to all the world for today.
Yes.
Because I don't know how to handle that.
Well, you did the first one. You're the one that brought it up.
There's
is great.
so much money out there that could be going to help that.
Yeah.
Well, the Gates
Healthcare.
Foundation is actually doing some quite amazing things worldwide to
Right.
help access to birth control all as much as they can.
Some of those guys are aware about the problem of
It's
too many
healthcare.
people. And
It's
We're talking about health care.
And Planned
That's
Parenthood
right, too.
actually has a Planned Parenthood Global, so we are across the world.
Yeah, yeah.
right.
Now you really are. You're being on Richard's show, see?
Yeah,
And you're gonna be on my
absolutely.
show.
That
You
makes-
really are now, see?
Yes.
We're getting right down to the meat of the matter. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? This is community television. I mean, it's an accessible thing, and we just talk good common sense. Throw it out on the table. Agree to disagree. I learned something tonight.
Well,
Great.
I guess I actually at this point I need to thank our crew for helping and make this show possible, because we need to go to our showing time now, And
There it is.
there it is. And we'll
There we go.
Okay, we're back. This part is especially interesting because people just don't know about it. It's about veterans who have not been properly buried all across the United States. And I think we're going to go ahead and play the first DVD just
You
as
talk
soon as
about
you're
it, yeah.
ready. We got 2 great DVDs, and we can talk about it a little more and about benefits.
Yes, outreaching the vets, that's part of what we do, right?
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
sounds great to me.
Well, we're back, and want to try to explain that a little better. This is veterans whose remains, or I should say cremains, have been left in funeral homes all across the United States, and just no one has thought about, well, that person should be buried properly. Well, actually, it turns out these guys on motorcycles are the ones that are thinking, hey, we've got to take care of this. We got to get involved. And so they're the ones that are really getting out there and trying to go to funeral homes, try to get the veterans' cremains identified and what that person was and what they did so that they can be buried and named properly in a military cemetery. So it's something that has just been neglected. And so, yes, I would say go ahead and put on that other
We're working on it.
Oh.
Richard, you gotta talk for a little longer.
Oh, okay. The other DVD is more going to show processions going through cities. And I can't think of a more fitting way to salute to a veteran than going down the street, having the people on the side being aware. Sometimes they wave flags. Just can't think of a better way to acknowledge a veteran going to its final resting place, really, because that's what they are.
Still having problems.
Oh, okay. I guess we're still having problems. So tell my co-host to come in and we'll continue talking about veterans' benefits, which if there are undoubtedly some veterans out there, let me tell you that there is a 2016 issue of the Veterans Benefits, and I had to go down to First and Main, I believe that's it, could be First and Columbia, wherever the Veterans is down there, and get copies of it down there. In other words, that's almost where you have to go to get it. And
Ready to go.
oh, okay, I guess he says they're ready.
You need to sit down? Ready to sit down?
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Well, on this 4th of July, some veterans are on a serious mission. They're searching for the unclaimed remains of America's fallen heroes to make sure that they get the burials they deserve with full military honors. Fox's Dan Springer has this story.
One by one, the names of 26 deceased veterans were read, their service honored with a color guard and 3-gun salute. It may seem like a typical military service in this veteran cemetery in Redding, California, but these soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines might never have gotten a proper burial. Their ashes were abandoned, left unclaimed in tin cans and boxes on funeral home shelves, sometimes for decades. Among them, Daryl and Phyllis Payne, who served in the Navy during World War II.
And Lord, I just ask for peace to the families.
Stepping into the breach is a group of mostly Vietnam veterans who are part of the Missing in America project, started 2 years ago by Fred Salanti.
It just gives us a way to express ourselves, to honor somebody else in a way that we weren't honored when we came back.
MIAP volunteer Donald Leedy brought his 10-year-old grandson along.
My grandfather fought in World War I. My dad fought in World War II. I was in the Vietnam War. I have 3 uncles that have died in wars, and I want him to know what that's all about.
The Missing in America project has combed through 500 of the 45,000 funeral homes in the nation, so their mission is really just beginning. But now they're looking for help from Congress, a law that says no one, veteran or not, can go languishing on a shelf in a vault for more than 5 years without at least some attempt at a proper burial. The group now has volunteers in 44 states going through vaults and asking to see paperwork. But some institutions, like the Oregon State Hospital, which has 3,600 unclaimed remains, say they can't release patient records to the public and don't have the staff to go through it themselves looking for veterans.
We would literally need to go through all the records that we had, and that's almost impossibility to do.
These men and women are finally receiving the thanks and respect they earned, but there are perhaps tens of thousands still out there. In Redding, California, Dan Springer, Fox News.
Funeral procession of about 200 motorcycles and one hearse rolled through downtown Thursday to honor 10 veterans whose remains were found at a local funeral home. With flags waving, motorcycles rumbling, and bystanders watching, the procession began at about 11 a.m. at Hull & Hull Funeral Directors, 612 Northwest A Street. Police and private escorts led the way east on A Street and south on 6th Street as the motorcade headed for the Caveman Bridge, Rogue River Highway, and eventually Eagle Point National Cemetery in Jackson County. At the cemetery, the names of the 10 veterans were due to be read to the toll of a bell during a memorial service honoring other vets who died recently. A military honor guard was due to be on hand. The remains were verified through federal records as belonging to veterans after a request was made of the funeral home by the Missing in America Project. The project seeks to locate the cremated remains of veterans and then inter them with honors. The remains of 14 veterans cremated about 20 to 30 years ago were found at Hull & Hull, which sent out letters in an effort to locate family members of the veterans. Some family members were not found, others agreed to participate in the event, and others chose not to participate. Funeral homes need not keep remains beyond 6 months. We thought it's a respectful thing to do for the veterans, Hull & Hull's Brian Ling said. The names of the veterans were not released for privacy reasons. Some of them served in the First World War. The procession was the first in Oregon for the Missing in America Project, which has found and honored the remains of about 150 veterans. More information on the Missing in America Project is available at www.miap.us.
8 months ago, Curtis Ming exposed how thousands of veterans have died and their cremated remains forgotten. They never got the proper burial. Well, tonight, momentum is growing all across this country to have these veterans buried properly.
We call on Curtis Ming with a very important follow-up to your investigation.
Well, most of these veterans have no family, and we exposed how their ashes ended up shelved, some for decades. But tonight, we want to show you what's happening to make sure they are no longer forgotten. It's a dignified place. Our veterans are guaranteed eternal rest. Veteran cemeteries. Those who faithfully fought to defend our freedom are promised a burial here.
If you're a soldier and you're wanting the honors of a soldier to die as a soldier, this is all you want.
Which is why Vietnam veteran Fred Solani is troubled to know thousands of veterans have been forgotten. Their ashes have collected dust for decades, warehoused at funeral homes and state hospitals.
A veteran writes a check in his life, and he writes it to the U.S. government. Here's my life. These are people that went and fought, expected to be honored, expected our country to take care of them, expected to be buried as a hero, and they're sitting on a shelf.
Many of these veterans have no families. In the case of World War II and Korean War veteran Bob Chester of Sacramento, we learned his remains were sitting on the shelf at the county coroner's office for 5 months. He had no next of kin.
He was the brother I didn't have.
Bob's best friend of 3 decades, Wes Nell, struggled to get him a military send-off.
If you can help me get him and help me go to a proper burial, it'll be the one thing I live for. I sure hope you can.
Ready? Aim. Fire.
We worked with Veterans Affairs. Bob got that military send-off. Buried with full military honors in October at the Veterans Cemetery in Dixon. Now at rest beneath this grave marker.
If I could tell him how good this has been and how wonderful, he wouldn't believe it.
Solani wants more outcomes like this one. 2 years ago, he created a national organization called the Missing in America Project. What's the longest you know a veteran has sat on a shelf waiting for burial?
1890s, World War I veterans. Some still on the shelves that we're finding.
His group is finding them, with volunteers now in 44 states knocking on the doors of funeral homes and hospitals asking for remains so they can have them buried. Volunteers say it is an amazing feeling when they find a veteran.
It may sound weird, but you're like, yay! You know, you hug, you cry, you know, you feel like we got it done.
But not everyone is willing to show what's in their back rooms. One of the biggest finds of remains so far is here at the Oregon State Hospital, where there are ashes of 3,600 people in tin cans. The Missing in America Project wants a list of names to see how many are veterans. But the hospital says they can't release patient records, and they don't have the staff to go through the remains themselves looking for veterans.
We would literally need to go through all the records that we had, and that's almost impossibility to do.
This is somebody's brother, uncle, son, father, many women.
There are possibly tens of thousands nationwide who have been forgotten.
All I can worry about is that this little guy is going to stand up and do what I can do.
And his group has had success. The Missing in America Project has identified the ashes of 286 veterans nationally. 149 have been properly interred. This ceremony last month in Shasta County for 26 veterans, a dozen found at a Red Bluff funeral home. One service at a time, veterans finally home. Resting where they can forever be remembered as heroes.
Peace. It's just peace. They're not abandoned. They're not in a dusty shelf.
The Missing in America Project is looking for volunteers and donations. If you'd like to donate or help, go to CBS13.com, click on Consumer, and open our story. We will link you to the Missing in America Project website.
Is this gaining momentum? I mean, I got the sense from the piece that it is.
It is. We first did the story last year. Since then, other mediums have picked up on it. So it's been nationally on television, it's been in print, and it's gaining momentum. More and more news outlets are doing stories, so it's getting more and more exposure. And next year, they really hope to get exposure. They're going to start in Sacramento and drive all the way across the country to Washington, D.C. They're hoping to gain momentum that way.
Yeah, it really gives people a chance to get something done. So often there's something you want to do, but you can't get it done. This is like from start to finish closure.
Right. And as we mentioned in the earlier piece, he said this is a dirty little secret that's been known for a very long time that nobody wanted to talk about. So now it's out in the open. Hopefully lawmakers will catch on, and this won't happen.
Well, good for you. You're one of those who started the ball rolling, so kudos.
All right. If you have a consumer problem you can't solve, maybe.
Well, it is a heartbreaking national secret, an indignity so deplorable it brought a two-star general to tears.
Tonight, in an I-Team exclusive, investigative reporter Lisa Zigman exposes our nation's legacy of ashes.
Recently, volunteers in Missouri and a handful of other states discovered more than 1,000 cremated remains of war veterans inside small canisters and cardboard boxes. Instead of receiving their promised military burial, these war heroes have been forgotten and left on mortuary and hospital shelves for decades. On a cold January day, Missouri's Patriot Guard formed its customary flag line, and another veteran was laid to rest. But not all veterans receive that dignified ceremony. At Oregon State Hospital, inside stark rooms, an estimated 1,000 unclaimed cremated remains of veterans are neatly stacked like cans on a grocery store shelf.
I was furious. Store them in cans like that were rusted and dented. And
Linda and Joe Smith from Dixon, Missouri, met in the Navy 37 years ago. The couple was sickened by these photographs of twisted and corroded canisters.
They wrote that check, that blank check, payable to the people of America, that no matter what happens, they're going to serve their country. As a nation, we let them down.
Less than a year ago, the Smiths joined the Missing in America Project, MIAP. The MIAP works with the American Legion, the Patriot Guard, and Veterans Affairs to identify the abandoned, cremated remains of forgotten veterans and to ensure they are properly laid to rest.
we visited a little over 100 funeral homes, and there have been a few that have admitted they have them, but they won't let us inventory them.
The Smiths learned a majority of the cremains have been abandoned by family or friends, or veterans didn't have family. The funeral homes can't simply discard the ashes. While Oregon represents the most glaring case, the Smiths believe the cremains of thousands of veterans are warehoused in dirty basements and back rooms and closets, waiting for a proper burial. Of the 100 Missouri funeral homes visited, only Gerber Chapel in Webster Groves agreed to go through the legal process and release the first unclaimed veterans' remains to MIAP. The stories of 6 Missouri war veterans quietly emerged after decades of silence.
We are gathered here today to pay our final respects to the following American heroes: Paul Albert Pickle.
In World War II, Captain Pickle received the Bronze Star Medal and 4 Bronze Stars. His cremains sat on a shelf for 33 years.
Richard Franklin Beardsley,
The World War II combat veteran, waited 28 years.
who achieved the rank of second lieutenant. Edward Allen Rudolph, who was a World War I U.S. Army veteran who achieved the rank of second lieutenant as an engineer.
27 years for Second Lieutenant Rudolph.
George Eugene Durkes,
First Sergeant Durkes, Sergeant Arthur Rudolph Hirsch, and Sergeant Lawrence Sieber Leslie spent a combined 71 years on a shelf.
Let us pray. These veterans lay forgotten for so long, and now we have the chance to rectify this mistake.
Our souls cry out when they say, "Gone, but not forgotten." We have an opportunity today to honor 6 souls who cried out. And I want to express my personal gratitude.
On a cold January day, 6 Missouri war heroes arrived at hallowed ground. Their long journey home was finally complete. The cremains of 5 more St. Louis veterans will be interred this spring. Similar efforts are underway nationwide. The MIAP estimates there are tens of thousands of unburied veterans. Now, a bill will be proposed in Jefferson City this session to make it easier for funeral homes to release the cremains to veteran service organizations. Volunteers with the Missing in America Project hope that this effort allows funeral homes to open their doors and their records so that these veterans, these war heroes, can get the proper burial that they deserve and that they were promised.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah. More information on KSDK.com about Legacy of Ashes.
All right. Thank you, Lisa.
Tonight we have the story of abandoned veterans.
As young men, they were called to war. They signed a blank check to die for our country. They did their duty well, and they came home believing that one day they would die as old men and women. They would get their due, a proper military funeral. Instead, their ashes wound up in boxes, unclaimed, forgotten, gathering dust on the shelves of mortuaries and state hospitals across the United States. One local group is now reclaiming their remains and restoring their honor. Stokes, Castberg, Edwards, Elliott, Farmer, LeClaire, Niver, Sutton, Verbaum. For generations, these veterans have silently waited in boxes on shelves, but not anymore. Now they have a final resting place thanks to their fellow comrades, the Missing in America Project, a project driven by a Vietnam veteran and his band of brothers.
It's baby steps. Every step we take forward is another step to do what we need to get done. So we just keep plugging away.
His name is Fred Solani. His life mission, find every last unclaimed cremated remains of American veterans. To date, the MIA project has found nearly 5,000 remains nationwide. And guess what? He's making a huge dent right here in Reading at the Allen and Dahl Funeral Home. At one point, this wall was covered with bookshelves. Inside those bookshelves, more than 100 ashes of veterans, abandoned veterans, but today, there's only 6 left. But how do the ashes of men who fought for our freedom become prisoners among walls? The answer is filled with ambiguity. Some have no family. Others are left with family who didn't know they could get a burial, or...
And then there's a very few people that just can't deal with it at all, and so they don't. And so then we're left with their ashes.
So does the blame lie with just family and friends? Allen and Dahl crematorium manager Bill Fisher says no, not when there's a group like MIA. Allen and Dahl joined the effort 2 years ago, but not every funeral home is willing to jump on board, especially when there's no law forcing them to.
If you go to any funeral home, they'll all tell you they love the idea and love to support us. Each have some internal rules or regulations that may or may not let them participate.
Fisher says some homes may even be afraid of lawsuits.
Well, if we admit that we have these ashes and maybe we didn't do something we were supposed to do, we're going to get in trouble for it.
But the bottom line is these veterans expected and deserved a military burial. So what's the holdup? KRCR decided to dig deeper. Solani says he had some trouble getting through to McDonald's and Lawncrest in Reading, so we gave them a call. They told us they had to check with their corporate office. We kept calling, and after a month, a breakthrough. His name, Jolly Welton. Born in Ontario, Canada in 1930, Jolly enlisted in the U.S. Navy and fought for our country during the Korean War. In 1989, he passed away. For 19 years, his ashes were forgotten. It's stories like this that motivate Fred Solani.
They came back. They're not caught or a POW or an MIA. They came back and lived and died, and now they're abandoned on shelves.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
All this passion extends further than Fred. Former vets who've tossed retirement in the trash for a cause instilled in their hearts.
With us as we honor for the last time these individuals who have definitely been in the wrong place.
This is where it all comes together for the Missing in America Project. They served our nation. Now it's our great nation's turn to serve them. The drive to the Northern California Veterans Cemetery in Igo is like no other. The day is cool, the air is crisp, and the mood is reverent and invigorating.
Present arms! At what point do you say, you know, how much more can I go through? But then you bury one of these guys.
It's all worthwhile.
It's worth it, huh?
I'll take 1, 10, 20.
As Solani says, baby steps. Rapley Jr., O'Brien, Jewett, Higgins, Welton. And something important to point out in all of this, while the MIA project has found thousands of ashes nationwide, the permit process and paperwork is extensive. Thousands are still awaiting burial as we speak.
More than 1,000 motorcycle enthusiasts rode into Redding today to honor a retired Marine killed in Iraq. They were there in part to drown out the protests from a notorious religious group. News 10's Deborah Hoffman was there for a story you'll see only on News 10.
Alicia, the Westboro Baptist Church based in Kansas is listed as a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. They take their message of anti-gay to funerals of fallen servicemen and women. But when word got out that they might make an appearance in Redding, the Patriot Guard riders showed up in force.
Take all the stragglers up there and line up.
From all over Northern California, they came.
This is a small thing we can do.
Many of them vets, all of them carrying flags. Some rode more than 150 miles to be here.
It doesn't matter how many miles we have to travel. If it's 2 or 3 days, we'll do it just for the support.
Today they are supporting the family of Joshua Munns, a former Marine who served 2 tours in Iraq. He returned as a security contractor. He was kidnapped in November of 2006 along with several others. His body was finally discovered in Iraq last month.
It's just been a horrible thing for their family.
God hates you! Family's tragedy compounded when they learned religious protesters from Kansas would be here.
Until they stop rebelling against the Lord their God and His commandments, they're going to continue to have these young men and women coming home from that battlefield in pieces.
The Westboro Baptist Church in Kansas achieved national notoriety 3 years ago for picketing soldiers' funerals. In response, the Patriot Guard riders were formed.
Can't say what I really feel about them, but if they want to try, they can try, but we'll just drown them out.
In fact, when word got out about even the possibility of a protest, Patriot Guard riders responded.
We're not going to allow protesters to disrupt a funeral for somebody. It couldn't be any more dishonorable.
They're despicable. I mean, there's hardly words to describe what they are. But it's a free country. They can be idiots if they'd like.
In the end, most never even saw the trio of protesters. They stayed only a few minutes and were kept away from the church. Most here to mourn the passing of Joshua Munns only saw an amazing display of patriotism and compassion.
It's pretty awesome to see this many people come out.
Now, Alicia, I don't believe anyone from Munn's family actually saw the protesters, but they certainly saw all of the men and women holding flags and saluting when Joshua Munn's hearse passed by.
A beautiful sight. All right. Thank you, Deborah.
I think that was very moving.
Yeah,
I really do. Just awesome. You probably didn't catch it, but just for a moment there, one lady bent over a stone grave and kissed it. Just that total lot. And you know, last night I happened to see a show, and Woodrow Wilson had just given a speech to Congress saying he had to declare war, the First World War. He had to declare war on the enemy. And he came back into his desk, and his one of the people that stays with him, he said he cried. Put his head down the table and cried because he had to do that. Wow. Well, anyway.
Well, that was quite some informational deal.
Yeah.
And hopefully the folks who are the viewing audience can appreciate the fact that we still have this anti-war or anti-whatever.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that these people died so these people could live this way.
That's right.
Today, I mean, they got to understand that. And you know, in all due respect, we did away with the draft, but that draft was really an opportunity to diversify this country even more, you know, from the standpoint of getting us together.
Right.
Because it forced you to get together, you know what I'm saying? You made friends when you got in the military.
Anytime there's an enemy.
That's right, we were there, you know what I'm saying? And then here we are now talking about folks who fought in the VFW, that's why it exists, Veterans of Foreign Wars.
Right,
You got me?
right.
And many of these people who came back who were dead who were dead, who died, if you will, when they were older, this, that, and the other. They went through that process. If they knew they were a veteran, a funeral home would automatically take them and got paid, if you will, to embalm them and this, that, and the other. They didn't have any. They just go through the process.
In other words, the funeral home had some money.
They had some money, but they took it up to the point where burial was not included in the payment.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
So that's what's missing.
That's what's missing. So what's happening? The VA just need to get in there and say, okay, fine, funeral home, here's the money to get this done. And in the future, if you will, in the future, when that happens, that's already included in the burials of veterans, unknown or this, that, and the other. If they got that last four and they're in fact a veteran, the funeral home know that they can get their money to get that person cremated, I mean, given the honors, et cetera, right? And then in addition to that, as far as the burial grounds and things of that nature, I mean, that's available now. That's big time.
Now you're talking.
I'm talking about
the federal benefits.
In the federal benefit books, the benefit books that we show all the time, right?
Veterans, dependents, and survivors.
That's right.
2016,
that's
which
right.
is good for right now.
Big time. And right up in there, it tells you right up front, all you have to do is call up the VA. You just call up the VA benefits. That's that 1-800 number, 827-1000. And to talk about this issue.
Okay.
Even if you're an employee of a funeral home or whatever, and you get someone in there, or an old folks home or whatever, they die and whatever, and they have veterans, call that number. Call that number. And if they don't have that, in all due respect, they're supposed to have that last four. The last four of the Social Security number. That's the new ID.
Oh, yeah, it seems to be.
That's the ID. See what I'm saying? Then that'll verify the fact that they're a veteran. So if they can't find family members of this, that, and the other, then the funeral home will basically go through that whole process, if you will, of making sure that that person is buried right.
Okay.
Because you can ask questions like burial and memorial benefits and the locations and whatever. Are we done?
Number again?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure.
1-800-827-1000. 1-800-827-1000.
And it's probably in the phone book under government,
but
federal government.
But VA benefits, just Veteran Administration benefits. Call that number and you can access anything and everything.
Okay.
In fact, that's what this book is all about.
Right.
See what I mean? Now, you can call up that number and say, I'd like to have a copy of the benefit book.
Well,
if you will, very simple.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? And then it's all there. If they wanted a burial ceremony, if they wanted military burial, whatever. They can get it. You can do the ashes if you want to, and they've got a place for that. And the other thing is, if they've got wives, their wives can be a part of that whole process too.
Okay.
They can bury them there too. I mean, it's just incredible the benefits that they have.
No one knows better than I do.
They can really take it. They can really get it all squared away. So this issue that they're talking about right now, if there are thousands, there's still thousands of them. But the bottom line is they don't have the money. These are just veterans that in some cases are volunteering, or they may have a little organization, this, that, and the other, but they really still don't have the manpower to take care of the job. So what needs to happen is that the VA, i.e. the VA, should take care of that job. All they have to do is basically go down there and say, bury this person, and you'll get compensated.
Okay.
Bottom line.
All right.
Very simple. Got me? Or if not that, if they don't know where their families are, if they got the last four of their service number.
All right.
The last four of that service number, they've got to be able to.
Probably should have the birth date too.
Exactly. But that four, that's it. You got everything. Your records now are on file.
Okay.
Big time. You can Google those anytime you want to. So that's a very important piece, and that was quite a piece right there, aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I hope those who are kind of like objecting to those individuals who died for their countries, who gave their lives for this country aspect of it, we went when we volunteered. We volunteered to save this country, to give the freedom, if you the various amendments that we have aspect of it. Don't blame the person who got killed. If you're interested, you just basically run for office and this, that, and the other, and try to do whatever's necessary to try to prevent war. But you don't blame the individuals that have to go, because when you're told to go, you go. It's not about I don't want to go, this, that, and the other. That's why the draft was good. It was good. Everybody had to go. There was no. And then all of a sudden, if everybody went, then all of a sudden, guess what? Then maybe people might start thinking, well, gee whiz, if I can solve these problems over here without having folks go out to war, well, then maybe we won't have to worry about all of the death and this, that, and the other, right? Fair?
Okay.
Got me? But the bottom line, again, what you just saw, we want to make sure you understand again.
Right.
Go to VA benefits, 1-800-827-1000. If you've got old folks in home that are veterans, this, that, and the other, contact the VA at that number, point blank.
Okay, but would you still agree there's still a problem to some degree about money? And that
It's always about the money.
Okay.
It's always about the money.
Yeah,
See,
I
you would think that, you know, if a person got money up to this particular point, they take the effort to cremate them,
right,
and put them in a can, or put them in a vase, if
That's
you will.
right.
You got
Somebody
me?
did that.
But you can bury that vase, and it's sitting right there. All you have to do is just call up the VA number and say, "Hey, look here, I got a vase of ashes of veterans," and they will take care of it. You got me? And if you go through that organization, they could still be a part of that process. The bikers and whatever could still be a part of the burial situation. You got me? We got VA, we got Memorial Day, we got a number of activities, you know, respecting veterans across the board.
Having all those people getting involved.
Yes.
That's a big part of it.
Yes, yes, yes. They can do that. And it's always good to have them involved in that process too, because guys are getting to that point in their life and whatever, you know, they got a lot of stories to tell. A lot of them have PTSD, right? Got me? They got that piece, and a lot of times just telling that story and the camaraderie and meeting other folks, you know, doing that particular event, if you will, that's good, okay?
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, these individuals should be honored. There should be no such thing as a veteran sitting in a can of ashes, sitting on a shelf somewhere, whether it be in a hospital or whether it be at a funeral home. That's insulting. That is totally insulting. We don't need to do that piece. So please, and if you're listening to the program or you're hearing the program after, call it the VA. Ask them the same question, and ask them however you want to. Just tell them, especially if you're working for a funeral home or something like that, or old folks home.
It sounds like Oregon.
Yes, Oregon looked like a big one. I don't know what we don't know the
well,
extent
it's
of the
personal privacy stuff.
Exactly.
So you got to get past that.
Exactly. Well, the idea is that thanks for serving. I mean, if they had not served, we might the war could have gone either way, right? You got me?
Right.
Especially the Korean War. You know, we had the Korean War and World War II. I mean, it was some pretty heavy stuff.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? You got me? And so
a lot of lives.
Yes, a lot of lives.
So it left a lot of soldiers still. They're the ones in cremains.
That's right. That's right. A lot of folks didn't go in the military. I know that.
Oh boy.
You know, a lot of folks didn't go. We did away with the draft, if you will. You got me? And now it's a whole different ballgame. And people tend to say, well, they weren't educated. It wasn't in the books. You know, they didn't highlight that in the educational system.
Or they were getting an education, and that's why they didn't go or get drafted.
Right. But I'm talking about, but now there's no draft now, see?
Okay.
So my point is that, but they never identify what that veteran was all about, what was this military about, and what the war was all about. We just don't, but the people who fought those wars, who died, whatever, they didn't give them the right, if you will, they just did not give them the respect, if you will, of knowing what these folks did for this country. They gave their life for this country. Their life, if you will, for a person to demonstrate or to protest or this, that, and the other. I mean, we've got freedom of speech, you know, freedom to carry a firearm. I mean, just on and on and on, you know.
That's right.
And so we need to know that's the beauty. That's why this country is still here.
That's right.
That's why it's still here. And but the bottom line is our educational system that doesn't educate our folks enough to know what we're talking about. We came through that, you and I.
Yeah.
And we both served, right?
Right.
We both served. Right. But now we got educated along that because we participated. Now the young person that's coming in now didn't go through the draft. They didn't.
That's right.
So but the only system that we have to educate them is out through our educational system.
Okay.
But it's not in there. Because a lot of the teachers, instructors, and whatever, they didn't go to the service. So consequently, guess what? They have a different view. But we need to recognize what this country is all about, and going right back to what they just got through seeing and whatever. That's why that's why we're so into wanting to make sure we honor these vets. They just can't be just sitting on a shelf.
That's why it's so impressive to see those guys' cars or motorcycles or whatever.
Awesome. It's awesome.
Really, it's just great.
And they see the value, and these are parents and mothers and fathers and whatever, you know what I mean, that they're there too, if you will, and wives and whatever. Not folks who just actually fought in the war, but folks who gave their loved ones to the war. that died for this country. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's
so,
right.
So it's so important. I can't say it enough of the fact that we got to make sure we respect these individuals.
No, that's right.
It's a disgrace to have these individuals on the shelves and ashes just sitting there when we've got burial grounds for vets and give them an honorable.
we do.
Yeah, we do have that.
Good place.
Exactly, and we've got folks that will visit those graves on an ongoing basis annually.
And someday, hopefully, there won't be any more.
That's right. Any more wars, if you will. That's what they're
when it's so we're at kind of a good place right now.
Yeah.
Hopefully it.
Yeah, like you said, hopefully
keep a lid on things.
They've always said though, if you got two guys, we're gonna still have a problem.
Well, anyway, I was gonna talk about the Veterans Hospital just a little bit. I don't know if you've been there or not.
Oh yeah, I've been there. I mean, I'm there all the time. That's part of what I do in terms of outreaching to get these veterans their benefits.
I just have been so impressed.
It's awesome. It is awesome.
It's just impressed above and beyond private practice now.
It is awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So we got one of the best heart department in the country.
Oh yeah,
right here.
Okay. All right.
OHSU, Oregon Health Science and whatever.
Yeah.
Their students are part and parcel of the VA on the hill.
So they are.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, we got some of the best. They really got into the homeless situation.
Oh.
They're building apartment units on federal grants and whatever. In Vancouver, they're building them up big time.
Oh.
So they've got a place to go, if you will.
Okay.
And I'm still beating up at the city, from the standpoint of trying to find them because they're still out on the streets. They're still homeless. Yeah. They're still homeless, if you will. But we just don't. It's just not organized yet to find out who's on the street. There's no vehicle that talks about that. So I'm still looking for vets. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Because they're out there. They've got mental problems. PTSD. Just on and on and on. And they're just out there by themselves, a lot of them. You know what I mean? And so we need to get to them. We need to get to them.
Especially the veterans.
Especially the veterans.
I just hate
the veteran.
To discriminate, but
yep.
It's the veterans are the ones that so much of their life would have been altered had they not been in the service.
Right, exactly.
And it's...
I mean, actually, like you said, it's veterans primarily first to start with. We just need to take care of that, especially those who were in the wars, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who came back and they're really having some major problems, you know what I'm saying?
That's right. They have all that stuff going on.
And it's really sad seeing someone, I've seen several of them, just laying out there in the fields, if you will, and, bivouacking out there. And imagine this hard rain that we just had, and no bathing facilities or this, that, and the other, no latrine, no nothing, just totally exposing it, and people just driving by and could care less.
Homeless and or veterans.
It's really just either one, both.
Yeah.
To that matter, it's just sad to see. Here we are, but we just gotten down to that point now. We've got to respond to this issue. The homeless problem could be solved overnight if they would just realize these are human beings out here. That are sitting out there in all that rain and cold and living in these kinds of conditions.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
And we just have a limited amount of cold because we go through warm, cold, and 4 seasons.
Yes, and I mean it's just a sad. And then here in the city of Portland, we got Wapato. We got a facility that's sitting up there empty that could house almost 800 people.
Yeah.
I mean, including the grounds, if you will. You got me?
No,
800. A dry place, a place that a person can take a bath. Where they can eat, a roof over their head, and stay dry, and clean clothes, and utilizing the goodwills, if you will, all the clothes that we give to these non-profit organizations and whatever. But my point is, we haven't done that. It's still empty. And just recently, I noticed the county owns it. Multnomah County owns it, and just recently, I guess someone offered them $10 million for it.
I just saw that.
But when it was built, it was $55 million, over $50 million, and they're going to give it away for 10. But it's other people's money, our money, the taxpayers' money.
We paid to have it built.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Now there it sits, and we still basically we're willing to pay for the cleaning it up, just keeping it looking good.
We made a double mistake because there
Christ.
weren't people waiting to go into it that we had to take care of.
Yeah. But now though, a person would like to have a roof over their head. It's a roof over your head. I mean, it's like a you know, the rooms are there.
Right.
The bathing areas are there.
Okay.
The kitchen is already there. You understand what I'm saying? It's clean.
That's right.
It's out of this inclement weather. Why can't they just go on and open it up? They're just holding it back. You know, I mean, all due respect, we got a Mayor Wheeler, who was at one point in time the county chair. He was a county chair.
Who is it?
Wheeler, Ted Wheeler, who's the mayor now.
Yeah, okay. All
He
right.
was there. He could have solved that
We
problem.
need it.
We could have solved that problem at that point in time. Now, Deborah wasn't there then, but she's there now.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. Do you understand? We got a building there that's waiting the housing folks, and we got folks living on the street, laying out on the street, and this, that, and the other. And you got people who are demonstrating, but as far as I'm concerned, they're just kind of saying they're upset too, but they're calling them radicals and this, that, and the other. But they say homeless. What can you do? Because they go home after they get through protesting.
That's right.
They go home
and turn on their heat and turn on the
That's right.
the heat from
right.
the oil.
But they want
that comes
something
on
done.
the-
But they
on
want
the-
something done. They can see the understand.
Right.
And there's this situation over here. But you got the politician who was saying, no, we're not going to do this. Why? Can you tell me?
Okay. I
What's
see
the
what you're
deal,
saying.
buddy?
I see what you're saying. But we're there. We need to.
We're there. Got the close up. Well,
Yeah.
anyway, we got on both ends of it. But the bottom line is that make sure you call that number, that 1-800 number.
Yeah, this, again,
let's
right.
get these guys buried right. The 1-800-827-1000. 1-800-827-1000. Let's get these guys a decent burial.
These are available down at First and Main.
That's
but
right.
It's hard, or First and Columbia, or wherever.
Or call. They'll send you a copy.
Well, okay.
Yeah, come to call. Okay.
Ever hopeful.
Oh, yeah, okay, buddy. Well, we'll just keep doing it, right? We'll just keep trying.
Right. Well,
okay.
I think we made our point.
I think so. I hope
Federal benefits.
Yep.